Hello everybody, Tom Davis here, PGA Golf Professional, and for this video I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you can make your practice more effective and some ideas that I use with my players to really try and get the most out of practice in the winter. Obviously it's not ideal here to be stuck in the winter inside, so we tend to fall into maybe a habit of beating golf balls and maybe not following some of the principles that would help you to get the most out of your practice. What I've got written down here is really the key things that we focus on when designing practice or training. First of all is to have a goal or some goals for the training or practice session that you're about to do. I think it's really important that you really have a think before you turn up to practice about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then within that it's important that we have variability, spacing, appropriate challenge, some kind of feedback and some level of specificity. So I'll very quickly run through each of these. So in terms of variability, what that means is changing the task more regularly than what I see people generally doing. And that might be as simple as changing club a little bit more often to as complex as actually changing different shot types, so to go from putting to chipping to full swing. Inherent within that then is also increasing the spacing in between repetitions when you practice. I spend a lot of time watching people practice, and generally I would say most golfers' practice repetitions are too close together. Now if you think about it, when you're out on the golf course there's a big time gap between shots, but also when we look at the literature around effective learning, that actually adding that spacing in there in between repetitions has a benefit. You've also got to consider that any practice or training you do is at the appropriate challenge level. We learn our most and make the biggest changes when we're pushed just outside of our comfort zone. Too often I see players make their practice too easy. It's not challenging enough, so they're not really learning, not really pushing themselves. It's important that you have some kind of feedback, the knowledge of results and knowledge of performance. The knowledge of results would be knowledge of the outcome. Knowledge of performance would be having some feedback on what movements or things did you do that produced that outcome. And finally, where possible, we want to add in some specificity. And that really means two things to me. One is that the practice you're doing is specific to what you need to improve, but also I've got in brackets there context, that where possible you start to add a bit more game-like elements to your practice and training. The one way that I do this is to do some circuits, and this is an example of a circuit that I have done with a player. So it's 8 different activities. If you fail at any point, you go back to the start. If you get past 4, there's a checkpoint. So then you move on to 5, and if you fail there, you don't go back to number 1, you go back to number 5. So the first task is chipping. Got to chip a ball into the hoop in golf arena. But there's a caveat to that once you've used the club, you lose it and can't use it again. When you chip one in the hoop, you go to hold a 6-foot putt. If you miss, you go back to number 1. When you hold the 6-foot putt, you're going to do 2 consecutive 8 irons that go over 140 meters. If you pass that, I want a drive of over 230 meters. So with this player, we're really working on some things around better contact, which obviously is going to produce more distance. That then gets you to the checkpoint. Number 5 is to hold 3 consecutive 4-foot putts. Number 6 then is to hit a pitch between 28 and 32 meters. Number 7 is 3 consecutive 6 irons over 160 meters. And number 8 is 2 consecutive drives over 230 meters. And this player completed this, and it took about 35 minutes. So he probably didn't hit as many balls as most people would hit in 35 minutes, but he definitely got a lot more long-term benefit out of that practice and out of that method of training. So give something like that a go the next time you are practicing.